Okay, so I'm going to start out with a week 2 lab assignment. I just cut and paste the question in here so that we can see it, but you don't have to do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the information from the question and I'm going to put it in the spreadsheet, okay? And these are going to be what I'm going to call assumptions. And I'm going to make that bold. And then I'm just going to take the variable revenue, which is sales. That's another name for sales, is variable revenue. And I'm just typing in 50 per unit. This is on a per unit basis. Okay, so $50 per unit, and then the variable costs are 20 per unit, and the contribution margin is 30 per unit, and the fixed cost is $25,000 right here. So all I did was take these 4 elements of the question right here, and I put them just in my spreadsheet so that I can refer to them in a formula. So it says calculate the break-even point in units and dollars. So we're going to do the units first. A break-even point is equal to a fixed cost divided by your variable revenue per unit. And that should say per unit and variable costs per unit. So all I did was then use a formula right here, and I'm going to go control tilde. You see the formula? I went B6 divided by B3 minus B4, all in parentheses. So all I did there was I took the fixed costs, which were 25,000, and I subtracted the variable revenue per unit, subtract the variable cost per unit. That tells me how much money is left over after I pay all my variable costs, like materials and labor. And then that gives your break-even point of 833, and if you want to see what it is, it's 0.333, but you always round up, so it's 834 units. And that's the answer to what is the break-even point in units. Then we have to figure out what the break-even point is in dollars. To do that, you use the formula, which is fixed costs is equal to fixed costs divided by what's called the contribution margin ratio. Okay? So that gives you what the formula is. So to get the contribution margin ratio, what I had to do was basically to calculate the contribution margin ratio, you take the contribution margin and divide it by the variable revenue per unit. And these are both per unit, okay? So to get this 0.6 right here, you can see I used a formula, B5 divided by B3, B5, which is just 50 minus the variable gives you the cost, gives you the contribution margin, divided by the variable revenue. So what that does is that gives me 0.6 as my contribution margin per unit. And then to get my break-even point in dollars, what I did was I took the fixed costs, which were 25,000, and I divided it by B14, which is the contribution margin ratio right here. So to get this break-even point, again, I took the 25,000 and I divided by the 0.6, and that gives me how many dollars I have to sell in order to break even to get all the contribution margin to cover all of my fixed costs. Okay? So that would be the answer there. So I'm going to put these answers in bold. This is one answer right here, and this one is a dollars answer. 41.76.7. I'm going to put that in bold. Your professor can see it. And the last thing it says is to plot a break-even chart. Okay, so what I did with that, and I'm going to redo it all here. You want to see what all of these, the graph of what all this is going to look like. I know that I'm going to break even at 834 units. So I'm just going to make up a range here. 780, 790, 800, 810, 820, all the way up to a point past 834. And then my fixed costs are going to be 25,000. And I'm going to copy that all the way down. And then my variable costs would be 780 for this scenario multiplied by the variable cost figure up here of 20. And then I take that and I copy it all the way down. Okay, now I made a mistake there, kind of on purpose, kind of not, but you see how I'm getting weird numbers in here? That's because I need that denominator needs to remain static. It needs to be unchanging. So I'm going to make this an absolute cell reference by putting my mouse just before the B and then pressing the F as in Frank 4 button. F4. See that? I drag that all the way down. And then the variable revenue will be this multiplied by variable costs, and press the F4 button for the denominator to make it an absolute cell reference. And then contribution is simply the variable revenue minus the variable costs. Whoops. What have I done here? Variable revenue. Oh, I made a mistake on this. It's multiplied by B5. Sorry about that. See that again? It's B20 times B5, not B4 like I had it. That was an error on my part. And then contribution was this minus that. I could also arrive at the same number by simply going 780 times contribution margin. That will give me the same number. It should. Hold on a minute. Equal sign. 780 multiplied by contribution margin. I think I've still got an error happening in here somewhere. Yeah, this variable revenue should be, I'm sorry, this multiplied by that right there. There we go. Sorry about that. Copy it all the way down. Okay, now my contribution is this multiplied by that. And I can also get that same number by taking this variable revenue and subtracting my variable costs. Either way, you get the right answer. I don't care how you do it. Copy that down. Okay? So now we've got all the data that we can use for making this graph here. The next thing we have to do is go insert, and then we're going to go, then we need to highlight everything. And then we go insert, and then grab the line chart. And then you get this really messy looking line chart. I'm just going to get rid of my question now that we've got it all figured out and put this right here. Okay, to make this look right, we've got to select the data differently. So we right click, we go to select data, we remove the units. From this side, and then we grab this for the x-axis and go down here like that. Okay, and we also want to add the variable revenue and the contribution to this as well. Might as well put the variable cost in there as well. Okay, now the other thing that you're going to want to do is just see how the break-even point is right here. So I'm going to go Insert, Shapes, and then I'm going to grab that was an arrow, and I'm going to go like this, right here. And I can tilt that a little bit if I want. And then I could go Insert, Text Box, and draw it, and go break even point in units. Now just make this text box look nice by right clicking, go to Format, Shape, go to Line, and go to No Line. There. Okay. And let me see if I can put it there like that. I might also want to put a title up here and go break even graph, like that. Okay? And that's how I would do this particular problem for the lab. That's it.